Hello everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial for UnityCookie.com. My name is Patrick Woodens, and today what I want to do is go ahead and create a talking system for NPCs. So this is the final part on the Holobot for now, after which we'll get back to working with the robot. But what I want to do essentially is make it so that when you get near the NPC character, then you'll start getting some text at the bottom. Where at first I'm going to be creating it very statically, so when you press Control it's just going to go ahead and jump to the next line. After which I'm going to go ahead and make it a bit more dynamic, where it's going to have that sort of scroll-in style effect, which you also see in a lot of those older Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance games. So to get started, first I want to fix up a couple of things. One, I noticed that the animation speeds were a bit off. So I'm going to go ahead and fix the animation speed for the robot to 1.8 and the run animation speed to 225. I found that these values look best after a bit of experimenting, so totally unrelated, but just a quick fix. Next up, I want to make it so that the Holobot character can have scripts attached to him as an NPC. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new empty game object, which I'm going to move over a bit. And I'm going to call this one Holobot_NPC. And I want to go ahead and parent these two to that one. So now we can use this one to add the collider and the script. So to do that, let's first go to Component, Physics, and I want to use a sphere collider for this, I think. And I'm going to make it pretty big. And I want to move it forward a bit, because that's generally the area where you want to be talking to him. So I'm going to place it something like this. This may be a bit too big, but... And of course you'll feel free to place this wherever you want. Let's see if this matches up in height as well. Yeah, that seems perfect. Okay, so also let me just move my robot out of the way a bit there. And let's rotate him like that. So now we can start walking towards him straight away. Alright, the next step would be to also want to enable isTrigger. The next step would be to create the script for him. So with my scripts folder selected here, I'm going to go to Create, and then I want to create a new JavaScript file, and I want to call this Npc Script. Oh, let's keep the same naming convention. Alright. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this onto the Holobot NPC. Now one other thing that I know we're going to be needing is a Gui Text Element, which is going to display our text. So I'm going to go to Game Object, Create Other, and then where is it? Gui Text. And to allow for some, you can see that it's now standard in the center of the screen. To fix that, I'm going to set its position to 0, 0, 0. And you can see that now it's completely disappeared. And that's because its anchor point is set to the upper left. Now for some easy positioning, because I do want it in the on the bottom of the screen, I'm going to set this to bottom left or lower left. You can see now it's completely at the edges of the screen, sorry. And so what you can do is you can create a quick script to position that dynamically, depending on your screen resolution. Which actually, thinking of this, we may just do for now. So I'm going to create one more empty game object. And I'm going to give this a tag because it's not going to have any kind of mesh or anything. And I'm going to call this Level Manager. So I want to go ahead and create one more script. Create JavaScript. I'm going to call this Level Manager Script. Okay, and let's drag that onto the level manager. Oh, and one thing I like to do with a name is I like to prefix this one with an underscore so that it's always on top, because generally I use this object to take care of any and all level-wide setups and functionality. So for instance this, where at the start I want to position the GUI text relative to the screen, that will be something that I want to throw on here, so really the sort of initialization. And also taking care of certain things like maybe the score or general enemies or whatever you can think of. So I go ahead and drag my level manager script in there. And let's start by opening this up. And I'm going to add one var, which is going to be for the talk text. So I'm going to say this, call this talk text GUI, and it's of type GUIText. And then in the start function, which I'm just renaming the update to, because all I'm going to be needing is the start here. I want to say talk text GUI. Oh, maybe I should show you this first. Where's my text? Let's call this talk text as well. You can see that it has a pixel offset array here, which consists of two entries. Or this is actually a vector 2 internally, sorry. But you can see that with the x, we can determine the amount of pixels it goes to the left, to the right, or to the left, and with the y, we can set it in the height. So ideally, we would want to make it screen resolution independent, like I just said. So I'm going to create one more variable here, which is going to be var edge margin percentage. It's going to be of type int. And then in the start, I'm going to say var edge margin, also of type int, equals edge margin. I can't type today. Let's just copy this over. Times, or let me think about this for a second. We can say screen.width to get the width of the screen, but then I want a percentage. So I need to divide this by that and multiply it by 100, if I'm not mistaken. And then what I want to do, because the screen.width is always going to be dependent on the screen resolution, I can just set the pixel offset.x to be that new edge margin, and just copy and paste that line and make that for the y as well. So now, hoping that I didn't make any weird mistakes, I'm going to go ahead and set my percentage to be, let's try it at 2%. And play the game. Nothing is happening, maybe because I haven't filled it in yet. So let's try that. And it's gone. Okay, so let's take a look at what the talk text now has as its pixel offset. Okay, 64,000. I definitely made a mistake here. Actually, we want a percentage, so it should be divided by 100, and then that multiplied by the edge margin percentage. Okay, so I can see 2 is still a bit too much. So let's set it at 1 then, 1% of the screen width and height. That seems right. And also in the talk text, let's make the text just a little bit bigger. Where is it? Font size. Let's try something like, let's make it 20. Nice. Oh, that's maybe a bit big. Alright, that's it. I'm not going to do anything else other than to clear the text here. Okay, so that's basically the setting up part. Next, I want to go ahead and open up the Npc script. And we're going to be needing quite a few variables, but I'm going to be adding them as we need them. So first, I want to use the onTriggerEnter function. And this is called whenever another trigger or rigid body enters its collider. Oh, and we're actually passing something here, which is the other collider that's hitting it. So whenever something is entering its circle, or the what's it called? The sphere collider, we want to make sure to see if it's the player. So we can say if call.tag equals player, and remember the tag is the one that we set here, which you can set from edit, project settings, and then tags. So if that's him, then first of all I want to store his level script, because I want to make sure that the player can't move while he's talking, I'm going to disable this entire script and let this script take control of any user interaction and input. So let's make a private var to store that level script in, or the player script, sorry, which is of type. Then I need to make sure that I get it right. We've also called it player script. So if the player has entered, I want to set our local variable player script to be call.getComponent player script. Alright, and let's just make sure that everything else works. Let's debug log it as well. So now, if I made a mistake, we should get null here or see nothing appear. And if it works, then we should get the player's player script as soon as I enter that radius. So just compiling and playing the game, moving over, and you can see we're getting robot player script. And if all went well, we should only be getting it once. Oh, and this one is still from when I didn't assign the talk text GUI yet. So if we play now, we should have 0 errors. No, we don't. Oh. Okay, let's take a quick look here. Oh, accidentally added it twice. Sorry about that. Okay. The next step would be to set up the text, I think. So let's say what I want to do for, oh, actually, sorry, not private. How I want to get the text is through a static array in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say var talk lines of type string array, and I'm going to fill these in the editor. Now, of course, you could go various routes with this. You could use XML files or text files or anything, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to fill this in the editor. So let's go here. Let's select the Holobot Npc. You can see we can now toggle these talk lines here. You can set its size. I'm going to say 9. And I've actually prepared a few lines, which are sort of standard RPG lines. So I'm just going to quickly fill these in here. Fill that in. Was that the first one? Yes. Oh. In the process. Okay, so you can see that doing this from a file would probably be a bit cleaner and easier to maintain, but okay. So now we have our text here. And let's make him talk now, I think. So going here, I'm going to say talking is true. And so we're going to need a private variable for that as well. Do we want it private? Yes, we do. Okay, so I'm going to make a private variable for that. And now in the update, we're immediately going to do a check to see if he's talking. And only then he should do the other stuff. The other stuff of that being, let's just set up the if here. If input dot get key down, and actually let me just check to make sure what key that is by going to edit, project settings input, and I think I want to use control for that. So the default for that would be, I'm not sure if there is one. Well, in that case, let's set one up by increasing this size to 19. Let's call this CTRL and make the positive button left CTRL. Gravity 1000, sensitivity 1000, that seems to be alright. So now if it gets the input button of control, display next line. Now we don't know what the next line is, so to do that we're going to need another variable, which is going to be also private. And I'm going to call this current line, which is going to be of type int. And when you start talking, I immediately want, just to make sure we're starting at the start, I'm going to say current line equals 0. And let's set the text. So for that we're going to need another public variable, which is going to be called doctext GUI, which is going to be the GUI text we just created. And we're going to fill that one in the inspector. So in the update, if talking, or excuse me, that's here when you start talking, current line equals 0, and then let's say doctext GUI dot text equals, and then to get the text we can fetch that from the talk lines array, and I want to get the index for the current line. So just a quick step back. What we're doing is we're keeping track of which line we're currently on when talking, which I am setting to 0 here when you first start talking to the NPC, and then I am using that to get the index, or as the index, of the talk lines array, which contains all of our lines that we want to say, and I am setting the text of our predefined GUI elements in there. So I hope that made sense, and if not, please feel free to leave a comment. So what I need to do here now is in the Holobot NPC, I want to fill in the talk text, which it's not letting me do, so let's try saving the script first. And that seemed to have worked. I can fill in the talk text into the talk text GUI there. And let's make sure that at least when I enter the radius, we should get something in the text there. Okay, and we do. We're getting the beep beep beep. And the input key named control is unknown. So let me go to, just to make sure here, input, name, ctrl. Oh, hold on, this should be get button down. Keys are used for ASCII key codes, I think, where button down is used for the virtual key codes defined here. So let's try that again, even though, alright, no errors, and we're getting the text here. Awesome. So all we need to do now is say current line plus plus, and copy this line to set the text. So we're moving up one to the next line, and we're then setting the GUI elements text to that index. So you're going to see that at some point you're going to get an error, but at least for now, I'm going to move there, beep beep, control, memory alloc, okay, who, what, recording, etc., etc. Okay, thanks, bye. And now we should get an error, index out of range exception. And that's because there aren't any more lines to display, and so Unity doesn't know what I want. So before doing this, we need to say, put another if statement there. So like this, I'm going to say if current line is less than our talk lines.length minus 1, because this is an array and an array starts counting at 0, I'm going to do the -1 or -1. If we have any more lines to display, then go on to the next one and display that. Or if it's the last one, we can clean up after ourselves. Say current line equals 0, and then set the text to be nothing, and also say talking is false. So I also promised you that we would disable the player script when we are talking to him. So now in the onTriggerEnter, I'm going to say player script dot enabled equals false, and copy that line. And here in the cleanup part of our function, I'm going to re-enable that, like so. So let's try this. Moving over, and I can't move anymore, which is good. Pressing Control to move through the lines. Okay, thanks, bye. And now it's reset, and I can move again. Right, sweet. So let's do one more thing here, because right now if I'm running towards them, I keep running. I want to say player script dot animation, and this works because it's going to get the animation component of the player script. Or actually, this may seem a bit confusing. Let's say call.animation, and then I want to go ahead and crossfade to its idle animation. And let me just make sure how alright, with an uncapital I. So basically when I go to him now, he's going to idle, and when we get back, he's still in idle, but when I start moving, it works again. Alright, that's pretty much it for the static part, I think. If you followed along so far, then congratulations, you now have a working talk system. But like I said, I also want to go ahead and create sort of that old school scroll effect where the text will be scrolling in. And that's what I'm going to be doing now. So first of all, I want one more variable, which is going to be called for, let's say, scroll speed. Or let's make it text scroll speed, just for clarity. And I'm going to say if Control is pressed, I want to wrap this entire thing in one more big if statement. There's going to be a jungle of ifs here, but that's not a bad thing in this case. If text is scrolling, just thinking of a good variable name here, then we should, what I mean by this is if the text is scrolling in, so it's appearing, and we press Control at that point, then I want the text to just jump to the end of the sentence, so to display everything. So display full line, and else I want to go ahead and display the next line. Okay, so let me think for a second here. Instead of just setting this text here and saying current line plus plus should stay, but what I want to do, let me comment this one out, because this one is for the static. I want to go ahead and call a function start scrolling. Okay, so let's write that below the update here. And I want to say, first I want to create a new variable, which is going to be sort of a temporary placeholder where we're going to be storing the text in. So far, display text of type string, and it's going to start out as an empty one. And basically what I want to do here is make one giant for loop that for every character in the current line is going to add that to the string, display that string, then wait for X amount of seconds, or a part of a second, and then repeat that process. So to get the length of the string, I want to say for var I of type int is 0, as long as I is less than talk lines for the index current line. And here's the cool part. dot length, because this gives us the length of the string. I want to say I++. And just to make sure that this is working, let's say debug log talkLines current line. And because this returns the current line as a string, we can access the character by using another index, which would be I. So if I try this, I get an error because it doesn't know what text is scrolling is, which is a very valid complaint from the compiler. So let's go ahead and create another private var here, which is also going to be a boolean. So what we should see is if I go to him, press Control, as you can see in my debug log here, I'm getting all of the text for the next line as separate characters. So MEMORY, memory, space, etc. Okay, so that's working. Now instead of logging it, let's add it to our display text variable here. So display text plus equals talkLines current line I, like so. And then I'm going to copy over this line. And instead of setting it to that, I want to set it to our temporary variable display text. So let's compile here. Except we're not going to be noticing any of this. What's going to happen now is we're going to be seeing the text pretty much instantaneously again. Because it is iterating through it, though it's doing it very, very fast. Probably in less than a frame. So this is where we'd want to say put the yield. So I want to say yield, wait for seconds. And the amount of seconds I want to wait is based on the scroll speed variable, which we can set here. Oh, yeah, text scroll speed. So if I set this to, let's say 20, you'd expect it to go faster than when I would say 10, or slower when I would say 50. So to get that effect, we need to invert the value somehow, and we can do that by say 1 divided by that variable, which we've called, let's take a look here, text scroll speed. So by dividing 1 by that number, we're going to make it faster based on how high this value is. So 20 is probably a bit slow, but let's give it a try. Alright, memory dialog okay, sensory functions, that's actually not too bad. Hitting Control. So you can see this is working now, but if I now press Control again, it's going to wait for it to finish, and it's not working quite as well. We're not quite done, but oops, we're getting there. Let's see here. If the text is scrolling, I said we would display the full line, so we can say talkText GUIText is talkLines current line. We're going to set it to its current line completely as well, anyway. And we're going to say text is scrolling is false. And so because it's then false, next time we press Control, we're going to get to this else part here, which is going to say current line plus plus and start scrolling. So let's give that a whirl. Going here, beep beep. Okay, so that's still working. Now I'm hitting Control and again. Okay, nothing. Let me think for a second here. We're hitting Control. If the text is scrolling, we're setting it to false here. Oh, right. Because this for loop, it doesn't know that it should stop now. So because it's yielding a bit, and then continuing on with this. So what we want to do is every time after it's yielded, it's going to start at the top of this block again. So before doing that, I'm going to wrap this part in an if statement as well, where I'm going to check to make sure we're still on the same line and that we're still the text is still scrolling. So if text is scrolling, and current line equals, we're going to need another variable for that. Let's say var start line int, and when we first enter this function, I'm going to set that equal to our current line, and then here we can check to make sure that we're still on that same line, like so. And I think that should be about it actually. Let's try that. Hitting. Nope, no, it's not doing anything anymore. Let's try it again. Beep beep. Control. No, I broke it. Okay, let's take a look here. Oh, also, to fix that at the start, it's not working. Let's start scrolling instead of just setting the text here. So again, this line is for the static, and then that one would be for the dynamic scrolling. So let's try that straight from the get-go and see what happens. Nothing. So I'm getting the eerie feeling that I am never setting the text is scrolling to be true, which seems to be correct, which we need to do as soon as we enter this function. So that's the first thing we want to do actually. I was wondering where that went to come. Okay, so compiling, and this time again I think it should work, so let's try it out. Going there, putting OS, hitting control, control again, control again, control. I'm just spamming control now to make sure that I can't break it anymore, and it seems to be working fine. So now if I release control, okay, one thing that I just noticed is now it's at the end, but if I now press control, nothing happens because right now it's going to the, it's still scrolling according to the script. So one final thing we need to do here is in this for loop, let's see here, we can just say this after the for loop. We can say text is scrolling equals false. And that's because this function is going to be executed top to bottom. Though right now, even if these, what would happen is this can be false. So it's not going to be doing anything, not going to be doing anything, not going to be doing anything. But at some point this for loop is going to end. And it's still going to set this to false, even though we may be scrolling in the next line already. Which is going to be basically the start scrolling function, but another instance of it. Even though, well, instance is a bad word, but this for loop is still going to continue. This function, this body, is still going to continue running, even though it may also be running for another line. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that if this isn't true anymore, we need to stop this function from continuing. And the way to do that is to build, or to say else here. So this is basically our way of breaking out of the function. We can say return. And so that will prevent it from from doing any more needless yielding and displaying of text, or well, not the displaying, but setting the our buffer here. And it's also going to prevent us from it from ever reaching this when it shouldn't. So this is going to be hopefully my final test for tonight. Going here, beep beep, pressing control, waiting for it to finish, control, okay, and control again, control, waiting for it, control. Alright, it seems to work, and everything is restored at the end. Okay, cool. Then I think that's pretty much it. Again, I hope I was clear. I realize some things may seem a bit tricky, especially things like this where we have a double index. If you want to make things a bit more clear for yourself, you can always divide this up into certain variables, where you can say var current string equals and then talkLines current line, and then use that variable here, because that way you'll only have 2 square brackets instead of 4. But the easiest way to look at things like this is to really dissect it and sort of figure out what's happening. So this is our array. Current line is our key for accessing the correct line or our index. So at this point we are getting returned a string, a line, and then using this I we are getting the correct character. So yeah, I mean there's a couple of tricky stuff in there. We have 4 if statements in a row here with 2 else's in between. If anything is unclear, then of course please feel free to leave a comment or send us a support ticket. And other than that, I hope it was useful. And next time I think we're going to get back into the robot side of things and make him shoot stuff. Alright, thank you all very much for watching and catch you later.